Tell me when we're live, because I need to move this.
Yeah, we are live. We are live.
Well, I'll just move it up there, and I'll just keep shifting. We'll keep shifting with the sun.
You're good. You look beautiful where you're at. So, hey, everybody. Well, I am Kari the Mortician. We're here with Alix Strauss, correct? That's how you say your last name.
You can call me anything. It's okay. I answer to most things.
And you're in Manhattan.
Manhattan. Yeah. The great city of Manhattan.
I love that New York. It's like I'm in New York, but you're like when people say that, but really like there's so many different cities that you're actually in, but you're not actually in New York City kind of thing when you are, because it's so big. Like New York is so big. It's overwhelming to me.
It is, but it's really very small. When we say, you know, city kids like myself who grew up here and were raised here, you know, we generally say, when we say a city kid, we mean the 5 boroughs. I love the people who are like, oh yeah, I grew up in the city. And you're like, oh really, where? And they're like, New Jersey. I'm like, that's the city. And then the real city kids, you know, we really tune into exactly what location, because we really do all know each other. It's really very small. It sounds big, but it's small.
I've gone to New York, or not New York, Chicago so many times, and I've got Chicago like I'm good with Chicago travel. And when I came to New York for the first time, I was like, I don't even know what to do here. Like I'm going to just go to my hotel. I'm going to go where I need to go. I'm going to go back to my hotel because I don't even know what to do. It was just so big. It's
overwhelming. It's
unbelievable.
It's overwhelming. If you're visiting, and it's still overwhelming to city people. I mean, I could go down to Soho or whatever area. Once you pass a certain point, you get so lost. And some of that's the charm, because you find all these great nooks and crannies and people and stores, but it is very overwhelming if you're not visiting somebody who really knows and can take you around. How would you know what museum to go to or what show to see? Or it's a lot. It's
kind of like any new place, like go to Ireland, where do you even start? Go to, England, where do you even start? So I think that's how I feel about New York. Like you have to have a specific purpose to kind of get you in, and then you figure it out. Well, guys, we're here today. We're talking to Alix. Alix is a New York Times bestseller, which to me is like the most magical thing. I don't know why, and how New York Times bestseller became like the epitome. Was like growing up, was that where you wanted to get to? Did you really know kind of end goal of what you wanted, or what were your dreams when you were growing up where you wanted to be?
These are great questions. So I started, I know this is going to be a shocker. I started on the acting road. I had my SAG card at 12. I did a commercial for Chef Boyardee's that went national for a year. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And then I did a succession of other commercials and some TV and film and theater and things like that. So I really was very focused early on in that realm. And then there weren't any great plays for women in their 20s. And I thought, well, the best way to be in something is to write it. This made sense to me. And so I thought, how hard is it to write a play? It turns out a little bit harder, but I realized I was a really good writer. I was an okay actor, but I was a really good, surprisingly, I never would have thought that for myself. And then in terms of the Times, it was really the one thing we got in our home that once we started to fight over the sections, my father, as a gift, got me my own subscription. And that was, that was the end all. And then I never went back. I mean, I started writing in 93, and that was it.
You went to New York University.
Yeah, I was at NYU originally for theater, and then I transferred out because their thinking was, this was so strange. If you're in the theater department, you're not allowed to audition for something else outside of the department. Oh. And I thought, these are my prime years, 18 to 21 prime years. And I guess because I had already been a working actor, I thought, not that I certainly didn't know everything, but you could take classes independently and still audition. So I transferred out of that department and into one which you really could make your own degree, which was great for someone like me who went to school at night and auditioned for things and worked during the day.
So when you got out of college and you're like, okay, I'm going to be an author now, like, how does that look for anybody wanting to maybe write? How does that first book look or that first kind of endeavor, because you're not really making money at that moment. So you have to be doing other things. And how much time are you really focusing on writing because it's not really bringing in money at that moment? How does that look?
You know, you hear these stories of people who are like, I sat down in 2 weeks and I wrote this great manifesto and then I sold it. And you're like, that can't possibly be, you know, someone's trajectory. What they're forgetting is, you know, I have 6 other books that I tried to work on and those are in a closet. And then,
Yeah.
you know, my uncle is the head of Paramount and he helped. I mean, all that, you know, you're hearing these little sound bites. It's all insta-lie, you know. It is a process, and it is about passion, and it is about having something to say. And I think it does take time, but you really do need to be dedicated. I'm a very big believer in, you know, you're your own best investment. And so what can you do for yourself to move your career along every day? So, and I still do that. It's never that never ends. It's like, you know, not eating candy. I mean, I'm never going to not eat candy. I'm always going to eat candy. It
Yeah.
just depends on, am I going to the candy store? Am I just going to the bodega? Am I going to a candy emporium? So it is about, I think, writing every day for the people who are having trouble starting. And I always say, don't start an entire novel, start a short story. Start with something very digestible that you can actually finish. If you're having trouble doing a short story, think of, you know, a one pager. What's flash fiction? You know, so it's, and flash fiction is something that's something like, I think it's 500 to maybe 1,200 words or 500 to 700 words. Start with something that you can really finish. And I think that's very helpful. And then go to the next thing, take a class, get on the internet. There's so much, the internet was not around at all when I started. So the world was so small to me. All the resources were so small. And in some sense, that's good because it hones you in a little. It goes back to, how do you maneuver through New York if you've never been to New York before? How do you know what to see? But now it is, you know, go fios. You could go anywhere and there's so much. And in some sense, that's a blessing and a curse. There's always somewhere to pitch and there's always somewhere to pitch. So the good news is there's always somewhere to pitch. The bad news is there's always somewhere to pitch. So make lists, see who you know in the industry, who can you reach out to, form a group that have a writing group once a week, once every 2 weeks. There's just get creative and get in there. And it's free. That's the stuff on the whole, you know, it doesn't cost anything to sit down and write. I mean, let me rephrase that. Time is time is a currency, but if it's part of the investment that you're making in yourself, it's a lot cheaper than, you know, renting a plane and jumping out of it. So whether it's a computer or notebook or whatever, you're spending time with yourself and for yourself. And I just think that's super important.
It can be good therapy, kind of getting out your story or your feelings, and you've written a lot about just human and humanity and, you know, dating and all these things. What was your first book and what led you to that?
Purposely Placed. I love that. You know, nonchalantly in the back of
in the background.
Sure. So my first major, I had a piece in the Times. It was a nonfiction. It was an essay about why I enjoy funerals, which I feel this is a very lovely segue for what you do and how amazing you are at it. So growing up, I'm an only child, but I'm the only child ever, as far as you can trace in my family, meaning everybody's had more than one child except my parents, who could have had a plethora of children and supposedly just stopped here. Though it is, I think the jury is out because my mother does like to shop. And I think she went to the hospital for a paper cut and saw a lot of women leaning into a window and thought they were just shopping and chose a child. So I'm not exactly sure. And then I have parents that just did not create any sense of family or connections or roots. And so we were not invited to a lot of the happier occasions. And if we were, my parents went without me. And so the only occasions that I really went to were funerals.
That's
And
interesting.
I fell in love with them. It's a very strong statement to make, but I think when you explain to people why that is, yes, it's a sad occasion, and yes, if you're lucky, it's great Aunt Edna, and she was 104, and she lived a long life. But it was the first time that I could say I belong somewhere, and then I got to connect with people that I was, part of, that I connected with through lineage and genetic makeup, and that was an extraordinary experience. So to me, they were reunions, and that's all I knew. And so when that's your first introduction, it was a wonderful. It's not, yes, it's sad, but it was a wonderful experience, and I fascinated by human connection and emotions and I'm fascinated by human behavior. And so I thought, what if I had a character who went to other people's funerals because she can't connect with people in her life? Let it be said, I have never been to a funeral. I didn't, that I
Funeral crash. You weren't out there doing that.
crash. Like Nina, I have never funeral crashed.
But it is an interesting concept. I've always said, like, funerals are social experiments. Every type of person, every walk of life comes through the funeral home at some point, either for their loved ones, for an extended friend, going along with somebody to another funeral. And you see all these interactions, like you're talking in your book, that you're trying to digest and trying to understand them. And the more you see, the more I feel like you realize you never are going to fully understand humans, because everyone reacts differently, especially to death. But I think that's such an interesting concept, that she is going to go and visit all these different funerals and encounter all these different characters along the way through the book, to try and figure people out and to try and understand, because it is the greatest place to see such dynamic. You go to weddings and it's all a lot of the same characters at all the weddings. You got your drunk bridesmaid, you got your, crazy uncle, you got this, you got, a lot of the same. Sorry, bridesmaids, I'm not saying you all get drunk.
No,
but
someone's doing cocaine off of, the Elvis impersonator in the background.
Yes, it's all the same in a lot of ways, but funerals are so dynamically different every single time in a lot of ways. So that's what I love about it. And when this first book came out, that book came out, what was it like opening? Did you have the opening the box moment with all of the things and seeing your book for the first time? Like, what was that like?
First of all, I'm fascinated by this open the box moment on Instagram. I just, Instagram, I have it's like an ex-boyfriend. I have a really, a hard relationship with Instagram, with social media platforms to begin with. I love them. I'm confused by them. They're just fascinating. Some people have a really obsessive relationship with them, and I think they're great to have, but they're also a lot, and all these different iterations of these moments of, here's what's in my closet, I bit into an apple. I mean, your child walking, everyone should see that. I mean, you got a puppy, I get it, it's a puppy, but you had to have seen your book beforehand. I mean, I've seen, you get the covers, but I guess people, it's the moment, it's the cake reveal. It's the, so 22 years ago, when Joy Funerals originally came out in 2003, there was maybe Facebook and maybe, 6 people were on it. So if you wanted to have an opening moment, it was me running naked through the streets, holding up the cover and being like, this is, which would have been a lot more interesting, I must say, than seeing somebody in their living room opening a box of books. I think seeing a naked woman run down the street with one book or some sort of, sandwich sign would be far more interesting. I'm going to bring back the sandwich platform, sandwich sign, and then I'm going to do my big reveals. But I was really fascinated by form and function and telling a story, and then also matching venue with what the theme is. And so while people were doing their bookstore readings, which bookstores are very important, I really do believe in the book tour. A lot of people don't. I love a book tour. I wanted to have it at a funeral home because I thought, this is so smart. I mean, I'm speaking your language. I mean, you must have a passion for funerals. And I mean, what you do is so interesting and so
Mhm.
wonderful and so needed that you must really be on the same level of enjoying walking into the funeral home in some sense, because it must be like coming home to you.
It is. I love, when people say, "Oh my gosh, are you at the funeral home alone? Are you there at night?" My favorite time to be at the funeral home is at like between 6 and 7 in the morning. No one is there. There is this quiet calmness about everything, before kind of everything starts getting busy, and it's just peaceful. And I love getting there early, having coffee, being the only one there. It doesn't always happen that much, especially with kids and stuff, but I love it. I love being there like late at night by myself. If you have to go in to do an embalming or something, there's just something peaceful about it. I will walk through without turning a lot of lights on. People think that's crazy, but when you know where everything is, you don't need a lot of lights on, just like in your own home. The funeral home I worked at when I was a teenager and then worked at for several years licensed, walking in there still, the smell of it takes me back to such a peaceful, calm place. Um, it's just home. It is. There's like a homecoming to me in that smell and in the building and the nooks and cranny of the building. And just, it's familiar. And it's, I think, especially a small town funeral home, funeral director thing, it's home because you've cared for generations of families and people don't understand that. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so creepy." And I'm like, no, the scary people are outside the funeral home. Like the outside, walking out to the parking lot at night is when I get a little, sketch feeling. But it's peaceful, and there's just something about it. And I think that's how it should feel to you, being in the right place and being where want to be, making a difference, and all those cliche things. But I love that. And I've said this for years. I have 3 books. I've started like little bits and pieces. And one of them, when I'm writing on that book, it's a fiction about at a funeral home. And I am always picturing that funeral home because that to me is home. And of all the funeral homes I've worked at, I picture that one because it's just my roots, I think, of being a funeral director were there. But
When you're ready, we'll go on tour together.
oh my God, Alex, that would like magically.
My big prediction is funeral homes will become the new community centers. So I think post pandemic, and I think it's interesting. So I think 20 years ago, people were not ready for a title like The Joy of Funerals. It's only we were still whispering the word cancer 20 plus years ago. So we were not talking about these moments. We were not talking about funerals the way you and I have just started to talk about them, that they are celebratory or that they are a place to make connections, or for people who haven't spoken to each other in forever to reconnect, and maybe apologies are exchanged and people are forgiven. And funeral homes have always been also a little bit like churches, like house of worships or temples to me. So I just think it was a very difficult novel, especially it's really a novel in story. So what you have are 8 short stories where someone has died, and then the novella, which is Nina, the funeral attending junkie, if you will, and she goes to everyone's funeral that you've just read about, but have not actually been to the funeral. So she goes to all of them, and you get a second version of who these people are beforehand that you thought you already knew, but you really don't. And I think I not only had a difficult title to digest. I think people didn't really understand the double entendre on it, and the real, how it really resonated and what it really meant in the novel. I think it did take people's breath away, and it caught people off guard. I think they also didn't understand that there were different ways to tell a story, and to have it in a funeral home. Before we were in this, you have to realize our group, they're finally in this death curious moment. They're in this death positivity moment. The people who are in this wheelhouse are now accepting this community and finding community and like-minded people, and people are interested in hearing about their own mortality. So when it had its 20th anniversary, which was recent, we reissued the novel. There's a new, there's an author's letter of why I wrote this so long ago, of where we are now, of this celebratory anniversary coming out of a pandemic. It really is about the loneliness epidemic, about our need for human connection, about how, in one sense, damaged we all are and lonely. And
so true.
It was this moment, and I thought, I'm not going to miss this moment again. And we had gotten very, very thoughtful, very kind, very favorable reviews, but this new version had a completely new moment. So it's been optioned for television. We're in early development with A24. We found a brand new audience. We've connected with an old audience. So it's been a really extraordinary experience. And what was even more fascinating, and streaming has helped tremendously, and titles like I'm Glad My Mother Is Dead has helped tremendously. The world was really ready for it now. It's, as a trend journalist, it's one thing to be early to market, but when you're really, really early to market, it can work against you. It's extraordinary to find this new place for it, but I changed almost nothing. I mean, I capitalized the word Black because it was about respect, and that we had, thankfully, not enough, but we've moved at least forward somewhere. I had 2 women who were married already in this. So there were these major benchmarks that we're at now that were already in the novel. And to me, that's what was so fascinating. There was almost nothing to change. The human experience is still that human experience, that need for connection that we're all having, that loneliness, whether you're married, not married, children, no children's, it's siblings, good families, bad families. We're still very isolated and very lonely.
Now, did you see a little uptick in people going back to it, or did you just decide to kind of do this re-release of it?
I did the re-release. I knew it was, it was coming. It was so clear to me that it was coming.
Well, I think that I hate saying, going back to COVID discussions with it, but kind of as you're talking about, we had this time where we didn't get to have funerals. We didn't get to do a lot of things for our loved ones. And it's funny, so many people just kept saying, it'll never go back. People are going to realize they don't need to do things. And it was literally the flip opposite is what I have seen in death care, is that everybody wants to do something now. Like whether it's at the funeral home, whether it's just getting together, and doing whatever. People were told no for so long and didn't get to partake in loved ones' deaths. And so more people are doing gatherings and just like open houses, even with cremation. And so that has been a beautiful thing. And I think people have found that joy of funerals more because they're seeing that need to connect after a death in some way, because they've found that it's so important. And like you said, funeral homes have become that place again. And that's why a lot of funeral homes are building event centers within them, because we have far less VFWs, American Legions, Moose Lodges, all of those. They just don't exist like they used to. And so people are like, where can we do something at the funeral home? And so we have to accommodate, because people want that celebration, which I hate the term celebration of life. Like, we can't skip over the fact someone died. They died. We have to focus on that for at least a hot minute during this part of it. And then, yes, we can celebrate that they were here with us, but it is still a funeral. It's still commemorating a death and all of that in the end. But I think you're right. I think it is a good time to bring this back to the forefront and let people experience it again. I think it's so good.
And I think people are also being open-minded in, the same way there's not just one way to tell a story. I think there's not just one way to bury someone or to pay respects. I think now, whether people agree with it or not, at least we're finding these different ways to keep a loved one with you, whether it's with some ashes that you're wearing in a ring or a necklace, or you're taking someone's ashes and making them into stones, really beautiful stones. There's the green burials, they're sending someone off to sea. There's all these different, shooting them in fireworks, having a record with their ashes. There are different ways to honor someone. There are different ways to remember someone. There are different ways to pay respects. And I think it's less, I think it's always, certainly always going to be sad, but I think we're really starting to appreciate the process. I think we all really need closure. I think it's also important. It's just, how do you respect somebody and honor someone and remember them if you're not there to do it?
Yeah. Now, someone's asked, do people really do this and go to funerals when they don't know the person? And we find like crashers at the luncheons. We tell families not to promote the luncheon, because there are people that you'll notice like, they were here twice this week already for a funeral. Not a lot happening like that, because more people are a little uneasy about it. Do you think, like big city, I feel like it would be a little easier to
100%
drop in on events and not be known,
especially celebrity ones. Absolutely. And now at that point, what's really considered, where there's a fine line between saying pay my respects or, I'm crashing. I think if you're there to meet other people and pick up, some male suitors, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. But there are people who do it.
Yeah. It's a bit of voyeurism in what it like.
Yeah, it's very ballsy. It's not nice. This is that moment for, the friends and the family. And that's part of what brings everyone together. That's part of that reunion. If you've got a gazillion, strangers that are dropping by, it does feel unauthentic. And that is part of the connection. The connection is you're bound somehow by this person. If you've got a bunch of, it's not a shopping center.
No. So Alix is not promoting going and visiting.
I'm absolutely not. If you want, please go to a bookstore, go to Bloomingdale's, go somewhere else.
Well, guys, I'm Kari the Mortician. If you're just jumping in on this is Alix Strauss. She's New York Times bestselling author. We're talking mostly today about her book, The Joy of Funerals, that is having its re-release in kind of a new era, a new time, looking at it in a bit of a different way. You can get it on Amazon. I cannot drop the link in the comments. I have tried to do that, and social media doesn't like me doing that. It keeps yelling at me.
Large poster behind me. You can see look for the 20th anniversary. There's that little sticker.
Yeah. So you can go to Amazon, just type in The Joy of Funerals and find it there. It's like $15. I think it's super reasonably priced to grab it. And how could people get like a signed copy from you? Is that a possibility?
Yes. Come to Manhattan. I'll sign it for you. If somebody wants to organize a reading somewhere at a bookstore, their home, or I'll tell you what has been fascinating, the outpour of kindness. People have called me and said, we'd love to throw you a book party, or would you come to such and such location? It has been really, I think we really do want to champion. This is the year of the book. So I don't mean this book. I mean, this is the year of books. And I do think that it's one of those areas where people don't want to see a book fail. I think there are lots of other things. No, thank God nobody's setting bookstores on fire. I mean, we're banning books, which is horrific. And I think that's part of the fight back. But, you're seeing the Teflon is having, where all the cars are being set on fire, and other things awful things are happening. People still love books. We're still going to fight for books, whether, you're a reader or not. And there's something so tangible about a book that I think people don't want to see books fail.
I'm not a Kindle, like I can't sit and like, I'm a hard copy. I don't do a lot of reading because I don't have enough time, and I either fall asleep or I'm thinking of the other 20 things I need to do. But I still like a hard copy book that
Me too.
That's mine, that I can like write in if I needed to and put bend the tabs or whatever. I do love books. What I do with them after, I don't really know ever. It's like, what do I do with this now? But you pass it on, or
You swap.
yeah, swap it out with someone.
Yeah, have a funeral swap.
So,
Do you
question,
do any parties at the funeral home?
pardon?
Do you ever do events or readings or anything at the funeral home?
We don't, not at the funeral homes I'm at. No, they really don't do anything like
Okay.
that. That would be kind of fun to do, though. That'd be cool.
There are some out there who really are doing event programming. It's not just for funerals.
No, we've had some baby showers at the baby shower. I'm engaged to Josh, and someone's like, "Why don't you get married at the funeral home?" And I'm like, that would be super easy. The venue's right there, and I'm like, but I'm good. But I do know people that have gotten married at funeral homes because they are event centers now, and they're built with chapels and sound and video and everything you would need, and then a reception area. And so they are perfectly built sometimes for those kind of events. I'm just like, they're enough. I don't need to.
Yes, you and Josh. First, congratulations on that. But you and Josh can find a place that feels good.
Yeah. Now, someone asked, what do you think is missing at many funerals these days?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Good job, Maylee.
I think we've come a long way, so I can't say that. I really love hearing the stories about people. So if there was a little bit of a longer opportunity or more of an opportunity for people to stand up and say some kind words or share a moment. I don't know if the funeral home or the funeral experience, maybe people are doing that afterwards when they go to the wake or sitting Shiva or whatever. So I think that might be a nice thing to add in, but I know nobody wants a marathon story, experience either. And I wonder if people are just so uncomfortable in funeral homes too, that they just want to move it to another location. And then that's where they'll do the story. So, and I do love a good slideshow or a good a movie. And I think if there was a way because some people only know a part of someone's life as opposed to the whole story.
Yeah.
I think weddings and funerals are in some sense very similar. I write about weddings quite a bit for the Times as well. And, whether the vows or the eulogy, or it's the only other experience that is so filled with emotions and human behavior, and all bets are off. And maybe more so for a funeral because people will fly in for it, and they feel an obligation. It's their opportunity to make amends or to say goodbye or do whatever. So I do think those things are very similar, where I would love to learn sometimes a little bit more about the person.
You know what I think is, I'm surprised because I've had people ask if I see this, that is not done more, is people recording a message for attendees at their funerals. I have never seen it at a funeral I have been to. I've heard of it happening, but like I'm terminal and I know I'm going to be having a funeral because I'm going to die, and recording something, giving to my family, and then being played at the funeral. Why people don't do that more with the technology and with how often we're recording ourselves and posting things, I'm surprised that does not happen more. I don't know that it's the best thing because I've never really experienced it at a funeral, but I am surprised that doesn't happen more.
So I thought you meant the opposite, that all the people who are coming, like find a guest book at a wedding, there are these new contraptions where you pick up the phone,
record a little thing. Yeah.
The couple. I thought maybe you meant when people come, they wanted to say, I remember Uncle Bob, he, this is for the widow or the partner or whomever it's for, the daughter, anybody. That's interesting. I think as we're starting to plan our funeral parties while we're still alive, these, whatever, if you want to call them a funeral party, a celebration, whatever. I think people are starting to do that now because it's that great line in The Big Chill, the best party we throw for you, you're not able to attend.
So true. I do like that thought though. Like they do sometimes at weddings, like, hey, record something for the, the videographer goes around and says, hey, give me about a minute about, well-wishing for the couple, that you have a booth so you can kind of go in privately and record like a 2-minute memory about the deceased, that then it is all linked together. For it probably exists, but if not, I'm going to patent it.
Could you imagine? We are onto something here about
that
how
would be
for going around
amazing. I feel like I would love that.
I would love that too.
My spouse died, or something.
Highlights from the funeral.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I think that's so cool. Someone asked if there's professional mourners. There's talk that in certain cultures and countries it's not so much a big thing here. I'm sure you could hire people to come mourn if you really needed to, but it's not like there's wailers you hire and things, but it's not so much an American thing to do that.
What is a wailer?
You literally wail. Like,
is somebody who cries at your funeral?
Yeah. And the louder you are, the more they were missed. So certain cultures, the more, I think I have a 2-minute video on it, is like professional mourners or wailers or something. I can't remember what it's called. And so the louder and more over the top you are, the more the person was missed and will be going on to the next life and all this. Yeah.
That's genius.
Interesting.
I'm working on a book on a nonfiction book on funeral experiences. I just built my own casket with this extraordinary woman, Sarah, who's out in North Carolina, and I just went out to Parting Stones to see how the stones are someone's cremation. So that's amazing. I have to put that on my list. And I did do Day of the Dead out in San Antonio, which was interesting.
Yeah, you have gone kind of on this deepest of deep dives into death care, funeral culture, things that people do. What has been truly one of the most fascinating things you've encountered so far along the journey?
Making the casket was really fascinating and interesting, and I enjoyed the stones. I love seeing I think it's holding on to something or someone in some respect. It's made me certainly start to really think about how do I want to, not so much even how I want to be remembered, where do I want to go afterwards? How do I want to be presented and preserved afterwards? Who's going to remember me? I think part of it is why I also enjoy books so much, because once I am gone, they're so tangible. They're here. There's a whole, you can't take the book away. You can try to ban a book, but that book is still out there. And it does live on a little bit. I think that there is something just so permanent when you're talking about having no permanence as people. There's cryogenics was fascinating to me too, but in a vanilla sky kind of way. I don't know if that's, and I don't know if I want to be now, after doing some of this research and doing a deep dive. Do I want to be buried? Is that? So it's all been fascinating, and the way people grieve in the different cultures. The wailing is amazing. I mean, I think that's so interesting to hear.
Funeral strippers. Do you know about funeral strippers?
No,
oh, Alix, man, we got to get you in. Yeah.
What is a funeral stripper? I'm in.
So it's Asian culture, and you hire strippers. So the wealthier you are, you hire strippers, and as your procession's going, they're on poles going down the road. It's wild. Yeah, Google funeral strippers. It's bananas, but it is legit a thing. I always saw kind of the same article floating around, and then once I really started reading, I was like, this is a legit thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there are so many cultural things that are kind of one-offs that, maybe existed for a little while or got banned at some point or whatever, but things that have happened and been done that it's like, what, like way back to Roman culture and things. And so, yeah, it's wild what we do in grief that we believe is important or should be done, or these moments. Yeah, I go back to, it's just popped my head though, but like when my niece was killed, the day of her funeral, it was almost like a weird manic, like, okay, we need to do this, like where each of us are going to stand as pallbearers. We need to sign that handle and we need to do this. And like, it's these weird compulsions to doing things we believe are important kind of in the moment or for the long run that make no sense to anybody else, seem wildly maybe inappropriate or whatnot, but make sense to you at the time kind of thing, I think. And so as kind of going back to your book, like you watch this from the outside, like what in the heck is going on? But to the people, it makes total sense. So, but it'll never make sense if you're just a voyeur in that moment watching it happen, I guess.
There's the whole philosophy too of, in one sense, in building this casket, and you can read Oprah Daly just put it up, this personal essay about it. You're part of the process. So whether it's for yourself or for someone, a loved one who's not well, or that person who's not well, who wants to take a little more control.
Yeah.
There is this, you had a hand in it. You were part of this experience. The people who want to decorate the casket, is I think it's healing for them too, because they're doing something. They're at least part of this experience. My mother, who's an older parent, we've tried to really look into how does she want to organize her funeral, and we started picking caskets and coffins and things, and and what song does she want, and does she not want a song, and I'm like, please, let's put some photos in your coffin. She's like, absolutely not, I don't. And I'm like, and a pillow from home. And we're having all these conversations, which I think people don't have at all, which I think are really important.
Yeah.
And death, death is overwhelming. It's
overwhelming.
overwhelming.
It is.
And it's about.
And when you're in the moment when someone has died, you fixate on something that maybe is illogical and it's not the normal, but you fixate, and that's like your thing, like, oh my God, we have to have this. And it may not make sense. So like on the funeral director side, if we have someone like fixating, we don't realize like how strongly important it is, because it's being driven by this loss and this heartache. And it's the one dang thing they want to do for their mom is have tulips in December, and we can't get, you can't get tulip, but by golly, we have to have. And it's hard to understand unless you are them in the moment, why any of these things matter or why you have to do certain whatever, just like with different religions. If you're not in that religion, you don't understand why X, Y, or Z matters and is so important. But when that is your religion and what you believe wholeheartedly, that's what you want to do and believe. Now, someone asked about what is a wake. A wake is like a visitation, we would say, and sometimes it's called a wake. Comes back to the Irish time, and you may hear Irish wake is where I hear the term a lot, but it's when you kept the person around, because what if they woke up and weren't really dead? And I don't know if truly that's where it kind of came from originally, but that's.
There's also the idea of a bell in the
yes.
in the coffin, in case they woke up and they couldn't get out, they would ring the bell.
Yep, there would be like a string all the way up top at the cemetery that they could pull if they so needed to, if they woke up later. But this was back when they didn't embalm maybe as much, or do those kind of things, or if they bury them pretty quickly, that they worried maybe what if they weren't really dead and such. So a lot of wives' tales over the years. How far am I from Detroit? I am like 2 hours from Detroit, Robert.
Maybe
Now,
a visitor.
Pardon?
Maybe you're getting a visitor.
I don't know. Yeah. Don't show up at my door though, please. I
Lots of things to greet you.
yes. Yeah, there'll be a very large dog that would love to just jump on you. Mr. Eddie. Oh, Mr. Ed. What is one funeral you would love to have attended in history? If you could, because of all of your research into funerals and things, there's got to be one I feel like that would have been the ideal to be a fly on the wall at.
You can only imagine what Dorothy Parker's would have been like, or Judy Garland's, some of those very famous, forward-thinking women who led extraordinary lives and that were before my time. And I don't know if you're going for that person or the people who are coming.
Whichever you want to choose, yeah.
I don't know. And then there are the people in power and wouldn't it have been fascinating to see Cleopatra's,
Oh,
that is, I would really have to, I'm pretty good at doing who would you have at your dinner party, but that is a really, I would, you know what, I would almost like to redo my grandmother's funeral.
Oh,
Because I was so young. I don't know if I have such a specific memory, and it's rare for the Jewish community to have an open casket. But we didn't, I don't think we had the open casket for the viewing, but I absolutely saw her in the casket. And I remember I was 13. I think I was 13. I absolutely had my own moment with her by myself. It was just she and I. I don't know why the casket was open. I remember singing her favorite song to her and I knew she couldn't hear me, but I would love to maybe do that over. To see what it's like now, 40 years later. But she's also the person I'd love to have a conversation with. So it's a very hard, I think it would be much easier if someone said, what ghost would you like to have drop by? So that's a hard one.
I think it would be amazing to experience some of the losses we go through when we're younger as an adult, where you take in so much more, you notice more details, imprint more memories of those moments, because they're so, I have little glimpses in my mind from like my grandpa's funeral when I was 3.5, very small glimpses of the room and stuff. But then I also am like, well, is it because I was there years later for another funeral, or is it from his? And so, your mind plays tricks on you. And I would love to be there and to remember more about it and what happened at it. And he was in the military, so we went to Fort Snelling in Minnesota, and would love to have any recollection of that part of it. And so I think that's interesting. I never would have thought of going back to redo like a family member's, but that would be nice to go back and do in a different mindset and as an adult.
It's amazing that at 3.5 you remember, moments of your grandfathers. It's extraordinary.
Like pictures. And my mom has told me things that I said at it, but to other people, like, it's okay, he's in heaven, you don't be sad and stuff. But yeah, I don't, it's weird. It's just pictures. But I'm one of the, like, my brother and sister will tell you, I'll say, hey, do you guys remember that? And they're like, how in the heck do you remember that? Like, I just have such memory moments. It's not that I have a great memory. It's that I remember things that that's why my brain's too full to actually remember like how to do algebra or anything. It's because it's full of these moments where they're just imprinted, and I will recollect them, and they have no recollection of these things ever happening. But I could tell you like what I was wearing and where we were and what was said and XYZ. And so I have like weird recollection of things. And
well, your iPhone, you don't need to do the math anymore, but you'll always have those memories. So I would almost say keep the memories, lose the math.
Yep. Yeah. Well, in our house right now, learning how to do 4th grade math is like my joy, because when I finally figure it out and can help her do the fourth grade math, which makes zero sense to me. I am so excited. Like, I want a gold star because I helped figure out how to do the math problem, and we learned
get a
how
gold star every day.
I need it. I'm like, send it home to me. I want the gold star. I need it. I need it. What is the rule on photos? My family has taken pics in the past, but seem like some are against it. What do you feel about? How do you feel about that, Alix? People taking photos at funerals of the deceased, of the family. You see this too, where, oh, it is a family reunion. Let's take family photos while we're here in our best red state. Like, what do you think about from both sides?
Some of it is, you could trace that back certainly to social media and having a selfie. So they're interestingly enough, if you really trace it, there were photos done of the deceased person and either the wife or the family.
Yep.
By the coffin, by however they were being preserved, and then they were going to be buried. And there was a name for it, and that I think they weren't funeral photos, and they weren't maybe they were memorialized, or there was something about these were years and years and years, decades ago. Those photographers that just moved out, and then they just did family that transitioned out, and I guess they just did family photos instead. Selfies have made it a lot easier and more acceptable. There are people who do take some selfies with the deceased. I think there's something disrespectful if it's not from a genuine spot. For me at least, if it doesn't come from a place of respect, or if you're not keeping it for yourself, I would hate to see someone be like, I went to the celebrity funeral and I took a photo by the casket and it's me and, so and so. Not so. And then you post it everywhere. If it's for yourself, it's to hold on to a moment.
Right.
Maybe afterwards there's an appropriate way to ask the family if they're comfortable. So I think if everybody's comfortable, it's fine. It's really about how do you ask. If you're just snapping them without people knowing and you're not sharing them and it's just for you, I guess that's okay too. But if it's also, if it's just to get, oh, this is so and so and they need work done and they were crying, that's not terribly nice.
Now, when it's post-mortem photography, I think is maybe the term you're looking, when they used to
early. I mean, it's super early for you. I don't know how you're up this early and looking perfect. I'm only one cup of coffee in, which was my bad. I should have had the regular too.
But yeah, I think now, especially like teenagers, and I've said this, I will always say it. Teenagers are in such a selfish phase of life. I was there. I was super selfish when I was there. And I see those are a lot of we're going to pose the camera and take a picture of ourselves looking sad up by the casket with whoever it is so we can post it. Like it's such an ingenuine moment to me. Like if you're feeling something, you're not taking the time to pose your camera, take a picture of yourself. Like you want attention because you want attention. And to me, that is the most ingenuine, disrespectful, not about the deceased moment. And I hate that.
So those are not just the teenagers, by the way. That's everyone.
Well, it's not, but that's who I see doing.
That is everyone.
Of those. It's just bananas to me.
With social media, it's made us. You don't have to feel in the moment, because if you take a photo, you can look at it afterwards. Remember, think of how you felt in the moment. It's really, we've lost. We're no longer judicious in what we're photographing. We're no longer judicious in what we're posting. I'm a big believer in anyone who says living my best life is not. If you need to post that and say that, newsflash, you are not. I'm not saying everybody should get off of social media either. It's here to stay. I don't want to go back to the Little House on the Prairie time either. but there has got to be a happy medium for something. We've lost our sense of it is the most, it's such an addiction. I think we haven't really,
very true.
It is such an addiction.
To me, it's a sacred, like there needs to be things that are sacred. If you're too busy setting up a contrived moment, and like, do we really walk around with our camera on all the time that, oh my gosh, look what I walked into. My man set all this up for me. And it's like, really, like, no, your man maybe did something and then you went out and were like, oh, hold on, I can't like be in the moment with you. I gotta record this so I can post it. And it's like, you just lost the moment, I feel like, and lost its genuineness. And so there's a sacredness about what we experience in life and what we do and time together. And, I don't post about my kids hardly ever, because I need to save something. I think, especially when I'm posting on social media quite a bit and stuff with Josh, people are like, are you going to video the wedding and stuff? And I'm like, part of me is like, yeah, maybe I'll probably share some of it, but I'm not going to post the whole wedding. Like that's our moment. That's our private moment. That's with us and the people we invite to be there, and people are invested in us, but it's like, there's gotta be a line. And so many people have lost that line. And that's
so, these are great statements and truism. Look, in the same sense, I can't stand hypocrisy. We are having a discussion and we are in the middle of streaming this on
so true.
I get that. In the same sense, I think if you are a celebrity, if you are a reality star, in some sense, for whom you are, you lose that. If that's your choice to put your whole life on the Insta world, on social media, you almost lose that opportunity, because that's part of what you're striving for, and that's your platform.
Right.
And then it's hard to ask people, now that you've put yourself out there, to know you less. That is part of this familiar stranger, this fake intimacy, this we're your friend, but we're not your friend. I know more about people. There are some, I was at some people's bris, but I wasn't at the bris. I watched a child being delivered. I felt I was the doula. I was not. But you're seeing everything. So how are we not to feel part of that moment? So, and then how do you know what to save for yourself, as you should, but we've lost that. We have lost, that's on us. We've lost that line. So I get why people feel, I'm a big believer in, if I've put myself out there, people do have the right to ask me anything, or to, I work for a newspaper. I'm on 24/7. Everything that I do, that is part of my responsibility. I'm very judicious with what I post. You rarely, I think people feel bad about themselves enough. We've made everyone feel bad about themselves. So I do not take a photo of the handbag I just bought or the free bag that someone sent me. I do not need to make someone feel worse than they already do. So I'm not that. Mine is a very curated social statement. I do it because it's important for work. I've had a shapeshift for how this world is. There are some people who are also technically savvy. I am not that person. I am like a Jewish MacGyver. I can put most things together. If you lose a limb, I can reattach it. I am everybody's 4 a.m. call, but I am terrible. I have a friend who's a genius. She'll take a photo. The next thing you know, it's up. How did you get it up so quickly?
Yeah.
You seamlessly threaded this everywhere. This is everywhere all at once. It's just, I do kind of miss the world before there was this. In the same sense, it's it helped a lot of people during COVID. I'm on the fence. It's a brilliant evil.
Very true. Very, very true. Now, what are you working on right now? Like, what's coming up next for you?
I have a new novel that just starting to make the rounds with that I'm really passionate about, and I'm in the middle of working on. I have a true crime too that I'm in the middle of
Ooh.
which is fascinating, and this new book on our mortality, our ourself and our mortality, and hopefully enjoying this world more by understanding how short our time is here.
Do you feel like doing a lot of these visits and kind of immersing, like you went to the National Funeral Directors
Yeah.
Association conference, like being around death care more, do you feel like you are growing a better and a bigger appreciation for kind of life and the brevity of it and all of it? People ask me that all the time working in death care. And so I'm interested if that's changed your perspective now.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that is the basis for the book too. It's not just, getting this better understanding um for the afterlife. It is trying to have this bigger, better life now, or a greater sense of appreciating this life. I honestly, I think it's really hard to do that, one, in how on fire the world is, and I mean that both literally and figuratively. I we're so disconnected as much as we're connected. We're a disconnected connection, which I understand the juxtaposition, the jumbo shrimp of it all, the oxymoron. I have to go back. I think we are a very damaged group of people right now, and that saddens me so much. I don't even know what if there's real happiness or if people are appreciating.
Yeah.
I think people do have a fuller life than we had before, but we're so it's so are we really appreciating this life? I don't know. I'm still figuring that out. I think the
Interesting.
people who work in this space, like yourselves, they're also very COVID, there was so much damage there was, and it happened so quickly. I think there's a lot of burnout in your space. And I
A
don't
lot.
know if people really are appreciating that either, that it's so, how much holding can you do for other people without taking care of yourself? How much are you supposed to be to other people? You have children, you have a fiance, you have a fiance.
Yeah.
Um, how how do you find that um, how do you find that place that you can live and yet live for other people? Where so it's a lot. I think that's part of the book. I'm figuring it out.
Yeah. Which is a huge journey for you to jump into for this book, but it, it's probably a way bigger pool than you realized you were maybe jumping into, going down all these avenues. And then you go
Big
down
pool.
one, and then there's another road, and then another road, and another road.
It's a big pool. It's a big
Yeah.
pool.
Now you got funeral strippers and whalers to
And
go visit.
whalers, but this is just such a you know what? It's such a larger pool, but I'm hoping that there are the water slides that I didn't know about. So I'm on a water
Yes.
slide. I'm trying to get to the water slide.
Funeral strippers is a great water slide. You could
Strippers. I can't wait to learn more about the strippers.
so wild. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And guys, go to Amazon, get The Joy of Funerals, check it out, send Alix messages about what you love about the book, and chat with her. And if you want to host if you're in Manhattan or New York City area and you want to host something where maybe Alix can come and sign books, definitely reach out to her and let her know. I know she would love to join with you guys.
This was
Yeah.
so kind of you to have me on your show.
Oh, I just love you. You are just the one of the realest, most amazing people. I'm like, that's what I have gotten so much out of being on social media, is the people I have gotten to meet, either viewers or interview people or other death care workers. And it's just been amazing, the connections I've been able to make, and how genuine and amazing people have been, that just care about me, care about my kids, care about my life. And it's like, do you really know me? But people do feel like they know me, and they just genuinely care. And it's amazing to get such blind support sometimes that you don't realize is out there. And it's been the greatest joy of it all.
And I think some of that is the allure to social media. That is what people are craving. I think you're also naturally likable and warm. And so people are gravitating towards that too.
Yeah. Well, I try and just be me. I always tell people, I'm like, if you meet me, this is me. I just curse less probably off camera is what I always say. Or curse more off camera. Sorry.
Yeah. These things too, but they say people who curse more, I should clearly be happier. They say people who curse more are happier. I'm like, I don't fucking know if that's true, but
it brings me great joy some days to be able to do that. So,
so thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And we will see you on the next interview. Bye.
See you on the next one.